Hello, hello, citizens of the world. Shaba Shams here with Shaba Speaks. We talk about what? Health, wealth, and relationship in a new Inspire, Empower, and Connect. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for connecting. Today's session, I have a phenomenal guest. Hope that you guys are going to find her advice and her journey so exciting because she was one of the most inspiring people that I met in my journey into entrepreneurship. So without any further ado, let me welcome my dear friend, Teresa Rand.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here with you, Shaba. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Oh my God, it's such a pleasure to have you on my show. Talk about how we decided to have each other on each other's show. And that message, I texted my friend Teresa and I asked her, do you want to come on my show, Shaba Speaks? And then she said, what did you say, Teresa?
I said, of course I do, if you will be on my podcast.
That is fantastic. So Teresa runs a podcast that she will be talking about because I'm super interested to know more about the behind the scene of how this program came about, especially that yesterday I was her guest. I was there in the studio. And Teresa, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. So to get our audience to know you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I live here in Daytona Beach, Florida. I know we have citizens of the world, so from everywhere. So I thought it'd be important to tell you where I currently reside. Originally from Georgia in the United States, and have been a Floridian now for a little over 20 years.
Wow.
But I am a retired CEO. I retired from a 29-year career, almost 30 years, but 29-year career with a nonprofit. And rising up through the ranks to become the CEO of my own 7-location association. And about 3 years ago, Shaba, which we met shortly after that, but I decided I was ready to be an entrepreneur after 29 years of working for a board of directors. So I hired a coach and went out on my own and started Rand Consulting. Rand is my last name. And I specialize in personality assessments, DISC assessments, Strength Finder assessments, and I use those to coach not only individuals, career coaching, but also I go into businesses and work with management teams because, as you and I talk, communication is key. Communication is key personally. Communication is key certainly in the workforce. The better you can communicate, the more efficient and productive you're going to be. So Absolutely. That was 2 years ago. And then I decided to start a community called the Boss Lady Community, which is a membership-based organization for women. And basically what we do is empower, embrace, and educate each other, which is what I love about my relationship with you, that we share each other. We share, you want me to be on your show, I want you to be on my show, and we're not competing. We're literally embracing and empowering each other. And I personally think women can do more of that. So I started the Boss Lady Community, and then of course here comes the pandemic, so we've gone all virtual, and that's when I decided to start the podcast. Your show, which will air next week, or the 30th, the week after Christmas, December 30th, will be show number 22. So we've been doing this now for 22 weeks.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's super exciting. I've been there yesterday and it's like, wow, this is really cool. I think it's all the setup that makes it like that. So you mentioned just like now something that I really want to highlight and kind of showcase because it's such an important attribute in the mindset of entrepreneur. And that's the idea of lifting each other up and supporting each other. I really want to emphasize this to my fellow entrepreneurs and those of you who want to start businesses. Don't think that because you're promoting somebody else, you're losing clients.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a saying, and actually I borrowed this from a friend who says it all the time. There are 7 billion people in the world.
I say that all the time.
If you are concerned that there's not enough to go around, there's plenty to go around. And I find that the more I share with other women and the more they share with me, the more we all grow.
Why are we not more supportive? Because we're afraid if we encourage others, it makes us less, but it's really the opposite. When you lift up other people and you have other people grow, you grow with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one question that I have for you here is regarding the disc test. A lot of people don't know what they don't know, and I always use this phrase as well, because
Right.
you don't even know yourself well enough, and like sometimes what are your strengths and weaknesses, and really
Right.
truly what kind of even individual you are. And I recall years ago, I took the disc test myself, and I found out that I am a D, a hardcore D.
I could have told you that. I wish you had asked me to guess.
A lot of people don't really even ask themselves that, and I think we should try to know what kind of personalities we are, because it will really set the tone of
Right.
how we plan our lives. And not only that, it teaches us how we interact and treat others. So could you please tell us a little bit about what the disc test is and
Yeah.
what people get from it?
Right. Absolutely. DISC, just start with, stands for, the D is driver or dominance, the I is influencer, the S is steady, and the C is compliant. So that's the primary four categories, if you will. But DISC tells us how our basic personality is. It's very similar to strengths assessment, which is just another personality assessment. It tells us how we naturally think, act, feel, and behave.
Yeah.
When we get out of bed in the morning, this is our go-to. This is us. And while that can change and we can manipulate that, it really doesn't change a lot. It changes based on your life experiences. But what we found, and this test has been around for over 50 years, both of these, and I try not to use the word test, it's an assessment, it's not a pass or fail, is that our basic personality really doesn't change a lot. We learn, we grow, we learn to adapt to our environments, our different environments. But the thing that the disc does that the others don't is it gives you three different graphs. And one graph is your basic personality. The middle graph is how you act under stress. And then the third one is how the world perceives you. So when you're a D, if you're working with someone that is a S, and the S is a really calm, stable,
Yeah.
steady, you need to know about each other, or there may can be some severe miscommunication. And interestingly enough, just that only less than 10% of the population of the workforce is a D. So a lot of people think that all the leaders and all the CEOs are
Yeah.
Ds, and that is
No.
far from the truth.
COVID-19, how did it impact your business? How did you navigate the waters, and how have you reinvented yourself a bit? Tell me a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, and of course we're still knee deep in it at the time of this. And my business, because it's a little over 2 years old now, had really just taken off when COVID hit. And the Boss Lady community was growing, the membership base. We were doing monthly events. I really wasn't doing anything online, a little bit of Facebook, that was how we connected and communicated. I was going into a lot of local businesses. I had even gone, within an hour, 2 hours away for work. And then bam, here comes March.
Sure. Yeah.
And so what I did early on in March is I immediately flipped the Boss Lady community to virtual. We went to 2 meetings a week the third week of March. As soon as the shutdown hit, we did a Monday, and we still do, actually, a Monday.
I came on one of the virtual meetings.
Yes. We do a Monday check-in call just to see how everybody's doing, because everybody in the world has been impacted by this. And then we do a Thursday night educational call. So early on, I had a therapist on. How do we deal with this? I had a financial person on, talking about all the options and grants and money out there for entrepreneurs and for business people, because all of our ladies are not entrepreneurs. And then we had an attorney on. We started working up toward the election. We had some local elected officials on. So we've been able to keep our membership base and keep going. Now, the business side of my business fell off a little bit. But what picked up was the individual side, because people had time to start soul searching. And people either were losing their jobs or beginning to work from home. Kids were home. And people were really beginning to think, and I actually think this is something good that has come out of COVID. What do I want to do for a career? Not just let my job happen to me, but let me control my job. So all of a sudden, I had these people asking me to help them do their resume. And so we would start with the personality assessment, and build their resume for what's next, what's my next move. And then from that, I started the podcast.
Yeah.
Because, like you want to meet people in all different ways, and we've got to get creative when we can't do it face to face. So I started the podcast, which I love. So yeah, you just kind of sit around and dream up, what can I do now?
So podcasting, tell us a little bit about how it came about, and it's connected to the Boss Lady, right?
Yes, it's actually called the Boss Lady Podcast.
Okay.
And you'll see my picture, because there's a couple of boss ladies, but it's like they have different verbiage. But it's the Boss Lady Podcast. And my co-host, Al, whom you met last
He's a
night,
man.
is a man. I purposely chose a man to be my co-host, because one of the things I've always said is I am for females. That does not make me anti-male.
Very nice.
I'm married to a man. I have sons. I want men to grow as well. But
Yeah.
I'm a woman, and I do believe women still have a long way to go, and have some barriers. So that's why I choose to focus on that. But Al happens to be a family friend, college friend of my husband's. And so I've only known Al 5 or 6 years. Podcast studio he had started with a friend, because he does a local podcast and about what's going on in our community. And I was like, oh, I just bought a microphone. I bought all this stuff. I wanted to do it at home, but I'd really like to maybe do it with you. And so he said, well, you can be my guinea pig. We really haven't rented the studio out. It comes with the engineer who does all the magical, editing and music. And so the podcast was born, and here we are. We've had over 2,000 downloads. Our average listenership right now is somewhere between 55 and 100 unique listeners every week, because the podcast comes out every Thursday. So for a brand new, no-name person, we're pleased.
Of starting a podcast, what would you advise someone who really is interested in getting their voice and their message out, and they don't know all the technicality behind the scenes? So you already had Boss Lady in place, so for you,
right.
But tell us a little bit about the technicality, the logistics of it.
Yeah. Well, I knew I had a little bit of an audience to start with, but it really doesn't matter. So many podcasts have been started without an audience. You just take a topic, and it's usually around health, wellness, growth, money. Those are the type of things that people. It's health, wealth, and relationships. Those are the 3 top podcasts.
Yeah.
So, which makes sense, as also the 3 top reasons people get coaching is health, wealth, and relationships. So, but I did. You got to love Google, right? I mean, we really are one humanity now.
Oh yeah.
So I Googled, I actually joined a podcast virtual retreat that was 3 or 4 days with a lot of information, and just really learned. I had 2 friends that I had been a guest on their podcast as well. So I went out and I bought all the stuff for my home, thinking I would do it from home. But you and I talked a little bit about this last night. It's not, you don't go into podcasting to make money. There is ways to make money off of podcasting. In my mind, it was to grow my community, which ultimately will lead to more Boss Lady members, more coaching clients, and it has. But I wanted it to be done professionally.
Absolutely.
So what that entails, and this is the part that you and I chatted about last night, is investment.
Mm-hmm.
We do have to spend a little money to make a little money, right? But
Well,
we're investing in
actually,
ourselves.
yeah. And in the beginning, actually, you have to spend a lot of money to even
Well,
start
yeah,
getting pennies before you really are in that
right,
status of making decent money.
right.
So yeah, I mean, and it's important for the audience also to understand, like, don't get discouraged. There is no overnight success and
No,
overnight sensation. People invested years and years in
right,
learning, educating, and starting a business, and kind of just be patient. And I always go back to saying, build your mindset.
right.
Build your mindset, because if you don't have the right mindset, success is not
Yeah,
achievable.
absolutely. And if you fail, you fail. I always ask myself the question whenever I decide to do something different or jump off the cliff is what's the worst thing that can happen?
Absolutely.
And the worst thing that could happen is I spend a little money and I decide I don't want to do a podcast. Life
And
goes on.
yeah, and it's a learning experience. And here is a tip. Well, not a tip, like a thing. If that really doesn't work, you can always write a book about how it didn't work.
That's great advice, Shab. I'm going to use that. That's
Yeah,
true.
it's like,
That's very true.
again, boss lady, can you talk a little bit about what it is and how can women, I know that a lot of women watch this
Yeah,
show as well, if they're interested in joining and becoming a boss lady. So
absolutely. This group, the best way to find, there's two ways. You can go, if you're on Facebook, you literally type in the Boss Lady Community, and that is a public Facebook page. I have a private Facebook page for those that join the Boss Lady, but the Boss Lady Community is a public page, and that's where you get all the information about what we're doing. Um, the membership for Boss Lady is $25 a month. So that in and of itself is, I'm really, really passionate and adamant to keep it inexpensive so that people can join and get the benefit of the educational piece. And then also, I just started a new Facebook private group called Career Cultivators, which is for men and women. So again, you can Facebook Career Cultivators and see that. And I'm doing weekly trainings, much like you, Shaba, just short 20, 30-minute trainings on career advice every Wednesday on that particular place.
call to action. It's in Arabic as well. Maybe I need to rewrite it, but call to action.
Yeah, two call to actions. Mark your calendars for December the 30th. So you can go on and watch Shaba's podcast, or not watch, but listen to Shaba's podcast because it's great. I think my co-host called you a live wire. He was like, woo! So December 30th, go listen to the Boss Lady podcast. And again, if you go on the website or the Facebook, all the links will be there.
Okay,
Um, and then the second call to action is just join our Facebook groups if you're out there in Facebook, because what I'm finding very similar to what I see here with you, Shaba, in my listeners to the podcast are all over the world.
yeah, absolutely.
And that's just fascinating that we can connect, to use your word, as citizens of the world, but as humans.
Yeah, yeah,
We're all human and we have more in common than we have different.
absolutely.
And I think we need to embrace that, male or female, or however you identify. We need to embrace the fact that we're all humans. Yeah.
Teresa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for having me on your podcast. I look forward
Yeah.
to hearing it. And it was really great seeing it. So if you guys want to connect with Teresa, go to her website, go to the
Yeah.
lady, connect with her on Facebook. And I will see you on the next time on the Shaba Speaks Health, Wealth, and Relationships in an attempt to inspire, empower, and connect. Thank you guys, and salam.